not able to figure out technology because I can't tell you how hard. So, or because you're all here. So I want to thank you for being here. And we are going to get started tonight with seasonal Southern wellness and basically how the seasons relate to us as people living in the South where we don't really have a temperate zone. But we do have waning light and we do have lots of different ways that we're affected by the shortening of the seasons. So I do this, in between seasons, once when it gets hot and once when it gets cooler, so that people can start to think about little rituals they can do to stay well and get themselves through the cooler season. So we have a little bit about the Wildflower School here. We are a year-round herb school here in Austin, Texas, right outside of Austin, actually. And we have on-site and online single classes, a beginning program, an intermediate program that's 6 months, and then an advanced program, which the total program is a year. And now we're going on to actually having a second year program. So we are based out of Austin and around Central Texas, so our plant walks are everywhere. And now that we're going online, we have this also available to the world. So let me get going. So a little bit about me. I've been practicing as an herbalist since about 1998. Harvesting, growing, and foraging. I specialize in bioregional, local medicinals, and I also am a body worker and practice working both topically with clients, and I also have a lot of experience internally. So I've been working with people in clinics since about 2000 or 2001. So what's hard for us, first of all, is living without distinct seasons. We don't really know when to do things or how to celebrate even the shifting of time and seasons when we're living in a non-temperate zone. So for us, living down here in Texas, it's a little bit of hot and dry, and then hotter and drier, and then a little bit cooler, and then we have a lot of unpredictability. So to a lot of times when you read books about seasonal living and how to stay well, they don't really take into account people who are not living with distinct four-season environments. So we still want to honor and address the shifting, but we don't have the drastic extremes that, say, Maine has, where it will get really, really, really cold and affect the body. So it does affect the body a lot here when it gets hot, but heat can actually, though you don't want to have too much heat, heat is easier to deal with in some cases than extreme cold. So we've had a really long summer. I think our summer ended maybe yesterday or 2 days ago. So we've had a really long, extended, hot and dry season. We did cool down a little bit, but the shift into winter has been really, really mild, and we are in somewhat of a drought again. So what do you do when you don't know how to live seasonally because there aren't seasons? You still honor the light changes. So right now, it's sunny and hot for about 8 months, right? And then we get into a Texas cold front, which is what we just had, 60 degrees. I think it was today. So I saw a lot of people. I took a plant walk with people today and this morning, and they had a bunch of coats on. So what I want to consider is that even if we don't have this drastic extreme change with the seasons and coldness and warmth and wetness, we still have the wheel of the year. And this is an old traditional earth-based calendar that shows seasonal shifts and ways that people marked changes. And it's based on light. So for example, when you look at Yule, some of this may be familiar to people, but Yule is what we're moving towards. So if we were to look at where we are, we're in between Samhain and Yule on the calendar or the wheel of the year. Summer solstice would be what they call Letha, an old earth-based spirituality traditions, and where they were following the earth seasons. So whoopsie, let me go back. So between Samhain and Yule, so what's happening right now, this is all based on light. When we get to the winter solstice, we get to the shortest day of the year. So I like to call a time of long nights and short days. And so this winter solstice, which occurs around the 21st every year, we're getting really close to that. So everything's just kind of speeding up a little bit. I don't know if y'all have felt it, but it gets a little speedier, and you feel like you have to get everything done before the end of the year. So our, current modern calendar ends just after the winter solstice, but it really does follow these old traditions pretty closely. So as we slow down here, or as we speed up internally, everything else is kind of slowing down as we get to this short time of the year. Then when you look at the summer solstice here, that's the longest day of the year. When you get to this middle part of the circle between Mabon and Ostara, those are times of equal dark and equal night. So what's happening right now is you have this light that's starting to go away, and that kind of can affect people in different ways besides the fact that it's a little less warm. So what I like to think about right now at this time of year is a ritual for cooler and darker times, because as we get cooler, as we get darker, it's a time to go inward a little bit and check in with the self and kind of see if we've reached all the goals that we wanted to set for this solar year, and if not, take stock of what we want to really work towards next solar year. So this is a really good time to start kind of reevaluating where you're at in your life, what you want to do differently, what you did well, where you want to go with it. So I really encourage people at this time to go take a walk by yourself and really kind of think and sit down. I've been waking up early every morning and doing a little bit of meditation and just kind of honoring everything and looking inside myself about what I can do to be a better person or just how to enjoy my life even more. So it's nice to take that time for yourself. And that's really the biggest shift right now is to go, as we have longer night, we go into the yin, into the self, into the darker parts, and get a little bit quieter. So that's just something to think about. A lot of people in Austin will speed up at this time of year because the weather's great. They can go outside and go do all sorts of stuff without, falling over from the heat. But I still think you want to think twice maybe before you take on too much right now, because this is a time of letting go and releasing and slowing down and going inward. So just something to maybe think about for yourself. And why rituals for this time of year? Rituals are a really great way to start new habits. So, a ritual is basically a decorated habit. So, you can do ceremony around something, or you can have something that you create every year as an herbalist. So I do that myself. I have certain remedies that when things start to get cooler and we start to go more inward, I have certain remedies I like to make for this time of year that really help me to get into the season and get prepared. Because a lot of times people will also have other health issues that come up seasonally. So one way to keep from getting sick is to have these personal rituals, whether it's waking up and doing a meditation or having some sort of way that you can kind of move into the season. And it's been interesting because, again, we haven't had any water, so the plants are kind of just waiting right now for a little bit of water. So I'm really hoping that we get to see that soon. So what I see in Austin, if I don't know how familiar people are with the area who are taking this webinar, but Austin, is pretty much the best time to have a garden is right now if we had water. So rather than looking at we have to burrow inside and deal with snow, this is a really good time to get outside, slow down, and just garden more and have these really beautiful winter gardens. And again, I'm just going to cross my fingers that we get some rain soon, because as long as we get a cool, gentle rain, we can have beautiful winter gardens in Central Texas all winter long. So be thinking about that too. A lot of bioregions do not have that ability, so it's really nice to think that a winter garden could be something that you could put some time into. And I don't think it's too late. I think you could keep planting right now. It's been a really strange year, so a lot of times people have had things die because there was too much heat for their winter gardens, and that's what happened to me this year. So create a ritual. Maybe you get up every morning and you do a little gardening, or you do a little meditation, but just something right now that helps you as the light starts to wane, because sometimes this can affect our emotions too. So right now, one of my favorite remedies is fire cider. I hope people are familiar with this remedy. This is one of my favorite cooler season remedies to make. I just made some to send up to Standing Rock, which I will be going very soon up there. And I made a big batch of fire cider to bring up to North Dakota so that people could get warmed up. So some people are cooler people than others. So just like times of the year, you'll find that some people are cooler than others and hotter than others and wetter than others and drier than others. And this remedy is really great for people who are just cooler individuals. If you're cooler, that means that you tend to get cold easily. You don't have good circulation. You tend to have a bluish look to the tongue. You might not poop every day. Your skin is dry. You're just cooler altogether. And if you're a cooler kind of constitution, then fire cider might be good for you year round. But fire cider is this amazing remedy. It's a traditional remedy that was coined by Rosemary Gladstar in the 70s, and she put it into her books. She's a really great herbalist, and she put it into her books in the 80s. And it's a bunch of vinegar. And in the vinegar, you would put things like the basics of it, and I'm just going to write it in here in the chat, is that you would put garlic, horseradish, onion, and ginger and chili pepper into apple cider vinegar. And then you would add, at the very end, after you let it sit for a while, you would add some honey to taste. And this concoction has gotten wildly popular. We have all sorts of variations on this. And you just fill the jar with different types of things like garlic, horseradish, onion, ginger, chili pepper. And then some people will add things like beets or even parsley or some other aromatic herbs in there. This season, what I did is I looked in my garden for things to add. So the latest batch of fire cider that I made was with hibiscus and bitter melon and some other things that were in my garden. So you can shift it and change it. And it's become quite a controversial issue because this or remedy, because this remedy originally was a generic term in the herbal community, and it was the first herbal remedy to get trademarked. So I'm actually in a court battle right now to keep this traditional remedy in the hands of everybody and not just one corporation. Um, so this remedy is a really great thing to keep on your shelf and make during cold and flu season. I've been teaching it to my students for about 15 years now, and Rosemary, who coined it, has taught it to her students for about 40 years. So it's a really great time-honored tradition that people like to make right about now. So we even had a World Fire Cider Making Day, and everyone in all communities kind of get together and make it. And then how do you take it? You would strain off the whatever you put into the vinegar in the terms of the garlic, horseradish, onion, ginger, and chili pepper, and then you would bottle it, and you would just take little shots of it. This is a really good remedy to use if you are sick, or like I said, feeling cold. I used to take it when I was living up in Oregon for a short stint. I would take it in the mornings because I would feel really cold and a little crampy. And so this was something that got my circulation going and felt really great to my system. I also really enjoy taking this if people get colds or flus. So this is something that if I was to choose any couple of things, because I can't say one, any couple of herbal concoctions that would be next to my bed, I would say fire cider would be next to my bed if I was battling any kind of sinus or cold or flu or congestion. So it's a really spectacular and lovely preparation that's something the whole family can enjoy. And if you're from Texas, then chili peppers are nothing new. It's really funny watching folks from the North Country put in just like a tiny bit of chili peppers, and I like to load in the chili peppers. So you can kind of make it to taste and decide if it's something that you want to adjust the flavor of. So it's a pretty nice tonic. It is pretty stimulating though, so you do want to be aware that if you were to be pregnant in the first trimester, any kind of really strong stimulant like this, I usually stay away from in the first trimester of pregnancy. And this isn't something that I've ever seen anyone put on a label, like beware of that, but that's just something that from my experience in herbalism, I tend to be very overly cautious with that. So there's a lot of strong stimulating aromatic herbs in there. An aromatic herb means that it smells. So if anyone has questions, please do go ahead and write them in the chat, and I will answer them as we go. So you're welcome to go ahead and just write in your questions if something comes up that you want to know. So otherwise, I have you muted, or else if everyone was talking, I would get really confused. So go ahead and write in any questions. So this is a great remedy. It's something that I have on the shelf over at People's Pharmacy, and then oh, good question, Stacy. And then I also am offering it in our winter community supported herbal shares. So how long do you need to leave it to sit before straining? I would say 2 weeks to a month. Ideally a month, but if you're desperate and you have a cold, you can break into it, eat early, and it would still be quite potent. I like to do a little ritual of actually burying it on the full moon for a month, and then pulling it out of the earth and using it after that. So that's just a little tradition I have when I'm making my fire cider. So you can kind of make it your own way, and there's lots of information about it on the internet. And we even have a website we created called freefirecider.com. So it gives you resources about the issue and also how to make it, and some alternative suppliers, things like that. So it's a really great remedy to make for yourself. So another one that I'm making right now is my yearly elderberry cordial. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with elderberry, but elderberry is a really lovely plant that's a fairy plant. That was its kind of claim to fame, is that the queen of the fairies is supposed to live in that plant. So you're never supposed to cut a branch of the elder without asking the fairy queen first. And the wood itself, if you were to cut back a piece of the wood, you'll see that it's a shrub that likes to grow by water, and so the woody parts of it are hollow. And Pan was said to have made his pipes out of the wood from an elder. So there's all sorts of magic and mystery that is associated with the elder. So elderberry cordial or elderberry syrup is a really time-honored tradition for the cooler season time, and it's a cooler season remedy. So elderberry is also known as Sambucus canadensis, and so I'll just spell this. So if you're looking it up, its Latin name is Sambucus. That's the genus. So you might see at health food stores something that's called Sambucol that's sold, and that's made from elderberry. So elderberry is thought to be a really great cold and flu remedy, particularly because the plant seems to have some sort of antiviral action. And the idea is that it doesn't allow viruses to adhere to cell walls, so it kind of makes them slip off more easily. So in World War I, or no, it was the Spanish flu. This was like the primary remedy that people were staying well from, to keep from getting the Spanish flu. And yes, it tastes amazing. So if you went to Europe, you'd see that elderberry, they have elderberry juice, elderberry wine, elderberry cider, elderberry this, elderberry that. The elderberry is a very common plant that's used in a lot of things all over Europe. So in the US, you'll see that it's mostly known in the herbal community, but it has a really great flavor, and the berries are extremely nutritive and antiviral. And then the flowers, they tend to be a little more diaphoretic. So what that means is they make you sweat more. So they are also antiviral, but the flowers really, if you have a fever, it's really great to have elderflower because it'll bring you on a sweat. So the thought in holistic medicine and nature cure is that you don't want some sort of virus or sickness sitting in the body. You want to do something to get it out. So one way to get it out is to get somebody sweating. So rather than suppressing a fever and taking something that would bring it down through and suppress it in the body, you actually get whatever the illness is to express itself and get it out. So warmth is one way to do that. Some people do saunas. So that's one ritual I have for the cooler season, is to get into a sauna as much as possible. So I like to go to the local Y and go get in there at least on a weekly basis and just keep sweating all through the cooler season. But elderberry flower or elderflower also is a diaphoretic, and many of the herbs I'm going to talk about tonight are diaphoretics, and get you sweating and get you warm. So the berries don't have as much of that, but they taste delicious, and you can make syrups out of them. And the cordial that I made for our CSH is, it's got reishi also that a local herbalist grew for us, and it's a really amazing mixture to have an elder reishi combination. So I'll talk a little bit about reishi in a minute. So elderberry cordial, a cordial is just a sweetened alcoholic preparation. So you can imagine that cordials don't last very long in a household because they taste good, and the alcohol is really just to preserve it. Although I do know a few herbalists that have managed to go a little too far with that idea of it not just being a remedy, but being something that was a little bit more, what would I say, recreational. So cordials can be a recreational thing as well as a remedy. And so you'll see that a sweetened alcoholic extraction can be a really fun thing to have. And you can do all sorts of things like that. So to make a cordial, it's a little bit more advanced than just shoving things in a jar and waiting. But you can make a syrup pretty easily. So if you get elderberries, you can take about 1 cup of elderberries to 1 quart of water, and then you'll steam it down 1/3 to 1/3 of itself, so that leaves it with about 10 ounces or 10 or 11 ounces, and then you'd add 10 or 11 ounces of honey or sugar. I'm writing this down for you. Steam down to 1/3 of the amount. And before you add the honey, you would also have to decant off the remaining berry mixture. So steam down to 1/3 of the amount, decant off. So that means don't simmer it too hard. It should really just be kind of evaporating off. Keep it at a low heat and just let it steam. And then you decant off the berries and add equal amounts, like 10 to 12 ounces of sugar or honey. One thing to note is that if you add honey to a really hot liquid, it destroys the medicinal properties of honey. So if you want to have a really good vital syrup that you can then add other things to, then you want to let you want it to kind of cool down a little bit to where it's under, like around 100 degrees or under, and then you can add honey in, and you'll still get some of the vital properties, because there's a lot of antimicrobial action in honey, so things that kill germs, immune stimulating properties. So if you heat it, you destroy that. And I know a lot of you are sitting there going, I put honey in my hot tea. Well, it still tastes good, and it's still a good substance to use, especially if the bees are taken care of well. But I think that it doesn't really have the medicinal components anymore. So it's just something to note. Another thing you can do at this time of year, speaking of tea, is to create a warming tea. So again, I was talking about how people feel cooler, feel maybe even a little bit more depressed, and coldness brings depression to the body. In Greek medicine, that was something that they would call the cold constitution was called depression. So somebody asked about, will I share the method for making cordials? Yeah, so it's a little bit more advanced. Let me go back then before I go on so people don't get confused. So to make the cordial, you're basically just adding in a little bit of brandy to keep it from going bad, because the thing is about a 1-to-1 honey. So if we were to have 1 part liquid to 1 part sweetener, in Texas, that's not going to be a syrup that stays good very long. So if you add in, say, about 4 ounces of brandy or 4 ounces of some sort of whiskey to that, then you get a cordial. What a lot of herbalists will do, instead of adding just straight brandy or straight whiskey, is they'll add something like elderberry tincture or they'll add another tincture, and a tincture is a alcoholic extraction of herbs. So you can actually start building formulas that are both syrup and then a tincture. You bring them together and they form a cordial. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to try to keep it simple, but you're basically just adding a little bit of alcohol in there. And then it's shelf stable once you do that. So you'll see that most cordials are quite mild in taste. It doesn't have a lot of alcohol. It's going to be really hard to get somebody drunk on a cordial. Although, like I said, I have seen it done at herb festivals. So warming teas and steams. This is another thing that I really recommend right now. I've been making tea almost every day. I'm so excited that it's cool enough that I feel like heating up water. So I usually do cold teas when it's hot out, or at least, just room temperature. And then if it's cool out, I go right back to making tea every day. And this is just such a great ritual to get into for the cooler season. And it brings a lot of joy. And sometimes what I've noticed is that, I was talking about our emotions at this time of year. Sometimes with the darker times can bring darker emotions. And so doing a really nice warming tea, like a roasted dandelion chai, and I had the recipes right up there for you. I actually make this, and it's in our CSH. Notice I keep mentioning I have a CSH. So if you have something that you can't get, I have it so that you can feel that you can try some of this. But roasted dandelion chai is just a delicious warming tea. So a lot of these things, you can see the cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, peppercorns, ginger, all those things are really aromatic and spicy and yummy. And then we throw in dried dandelion root, and it gives it a really deep flavor. So dandelion can add a really nice touch to chai. So I also like to make it nice and milky and frothy, because it just gives you a real treat. So you can do some honey, and again, it's a good sweetener. It's not going to give you the medicinal properties in a hot tea, but it's a good sweetener. And then you can have that warming, frothy milk that you can have at night or in the morning, whatever you want. And I've had people that didn't think they could get off coffee, but we started making them this, and they were craving this much more than they ever craved coffee. So especially you see that frothiness, you want to try that. So I even have a frother that I use just to make my tea feel more fancy sometimes. So so it's really nice to make these and make it feel like you're getting a fancy drink. But it's really simple. It's just spices and a little bit of dandelion, and you would simmer this. So what you would do with this is you would take about a teaspoon of herbs per 8 to 10 ounces. So I'll write that: 1 teaspoon of herbs per 8 to 10 ounces. And you would simmer that. And so I usually I'll put more like 10 to 12 ounces in, because sometimes when you simmer, you'll find that some of it evaporates. So if you wanted, sometimes what you can do is make a bigger batch and just keep it on the stove and scoop out a cup when you want it, and just keep it on warm after you've simmered it. But when you're dealing with these spices, you're really going to want to simmer on low, for, just enough to where it's barely bubbling. And you want to do that. I like to do it 30 minutes to an hour. And if you don't do it very long, you're not going to get much flavor. What's really nice about these aromatics too is while you're simmering them, your whole house is going to smell delicious. So you could get creative with this and do your own spiced teas and have a pot on the stove at all times and just kind of dip into it at will. And I really think this is a great simple way to elevate your mood and to have a little ritual of warmth when you're feeling maybe a little down and maybe a little cold. So mulling spices, this is another kind of option if you didn't want to do the chai necessarily. The mulling spices are things you can throw into cider, and you can make your own too. And the difference between a chai and mulling spices is that this will have like little bits of orange peel and other types of little fruits in there, maybe even juniper berries or other things that those get mulled into like a fruit juice like cider, and then you have a nice spicy cider with it. So the other thing I like to do when I say steams, because you'll see this last slide I mentioned the steams, is that you can either drink these or you can put your face over them and inhale, because those aromatics, the smelly parts of the herbs, are going to help open sinuses and it just invigorate the senses. So it's a really good method for and don't do it while it's simmering and it's really hot. You want to turn off the heat first, and then you can just steam yourself and just allow the steam to penetrate the house. It's a really nice way to cheer up the house. Another thing you can do, and you see this word aromatic a lot. So there's this wheel that we use in holistic Western medicine that each of our types of properties of herbs fit into a different quadrant. And aromatics are what we call hot and dry. And so they are up in the hot and dry quadrant. So you'll see that because I'm talking about cooler, more moist times of year, I'm talking a lot about herbs that are warmer and drier. So that's why the word aromatic keeps coming in. It's a type of property that hot and dry herbs have. So it's the smell that plants give off, and it works through irritating different membranes, mucosa in the body, and the irritation makes things leave your body. So it's a lot of aromatics are stimulating, and they also help to rid the body of infection. So you'll see that garlic is another aromatic. So here's an example of doing a topical with aromatics. So antibiotic garlic salve. So you can do garlic, and you can use garlic, onions, and other really nice, even kitchen spices. What I did is for this winter season, I made a chest rub that's what I call like a kitchen witch chest rub. And so you use garlic and onion and thyme and rosemary, and you mix it in to oil, and then that oil is made into a salve. So you can either use the oil or the salve. The salve is a thickened oil, so you thicken the oil with wax. So with garlic salve, or with any kind of aromatic salve, you're going to take oil, and you'll want to use dried plants if possible, because wet plants and oil equal rot even in winter. So if you can use, the drier the plants, the better. Obviously with garlic, you don't always have to do that, but you'll want to grind up the plant material into the oil and let it sit for a good 2 weeks to 3 weeks. Some people will use a hot method of heating up the oil, but some constituents of garlic are killed with heat. So you can choose your way, but I'm not going to be able to get into salve making much more than that in this little webinar, because it takes a little bit more to explain. But what you can do is you can take a jar of olive oil and fill it with aromatic herbs, and then including garlic, let it sit on your counter, even on top of your fridge for a couple weeks, and then after you decant off the oil from the herbs, you can use that on your chest to open up and help with any kind of lung congestion. And what I found with onion specifically is that if somebody gets some sort of lung infection and nothing is touching it, and people are still coughing, and you've tried everything, you've done your antibiotics, you've done your herbs, you've done everything, you still have a lingering cough, I've seen that just pure onion, and there's different applications topically for onion, but you can Google that. But onion poultices applied topically are some of the most simple and effective ways to remedy a stubborn lung cold. So it's just something to think about. So, aromatic topical oils, any kind of nice warming oils are going to be good in the cold. So, I even like to use things like juniper oil, which is our native cedar that everyone's allergic to. It's a really nice warming aromatic topical oil that helps to keep away arthritis and cold in the body. So then we have spirit. So I know that everyone loves, well, some people love the holidays, and then some people get really stressed out around the holidays, and some people don't even themselves celebrate holidays. But even if you don't, and you're celebrating your own, or you have your own method, you still deal with all the same things everybody else does, because everywhere you go, people are talking about holidays. And what that usually means in the holidays, that you also have a lot of interactions with family. So for some people, that's a really beautiful, cheery time. And for some people, that's stressful and triggering and all these other things. So I don't see as much of the cheery stuff, because when people are feeling cheery and good, they don't come to see the herbalist. I see people who get really depressed, and they are having problems with their family, or maybe they were really stressed out from the election, because no matter what side you were on, that was a really stressful and intense election season. So so a lot of people are still processing that, and there's a lot of stress and pain. So around the holidays, I like to think about ways to lift the spirits, and also look at our shadows and know that that it is a shadow, and that we do all hold shadows, and that the best way to move forward is to know what we hold, and then accept it and move on. So there's a lot of herbs for that. That's why I'm here to talk about the herbs. So let me go back to before I go through the list of herbs there. But when you're thinking about holiday stress and shadows, those cordials that, when I talked about the cordial with elderberry, I just made one for our winter share in the apothecary that's made from summer and fall plants that were growing in our gardens. And I made up this cordial that was specifically for stress and holiday time for people who don't do as well. So we did things like hibiscus and tulsi, which tulsi is an adaptogen, something that strengthens the immune system and strengthens your ability to deal with stress. And then I also put passion flower in there for anxiety, and all these things came from my garden. And if you think about that, if you have a syrup or a cordial or a remedy you make that you grew and you have a relationship with, it really brings a lot of joy to bring that into your life. So another thing that people will sometimes use is flower essences. Flower essences are the spirit of the plants. And so if you're somebody who deals with depression, or doesn't do well with less light, doesn't do well with these darker times, first of all, you should feel totally welcome to sleep more, because this is what your body needs right now, is more sleep, slowing down, and really going inward. And then secondly, use some herbs to help get you through this time. Play around with some flower essences. Flower essences are available everywhere. And I'm just putting that down in case people are not familiar with them, but they come in Bach flower remedies or flower essences, and there's different kits that you can get and use. So here's some of the herbs that have come up that I just wanted to make sure that you see, that are things that you can think of incorporating in to herbal allies for cooler seasons. And some of these I've chosen because they grow really well in the winter. So for example, calendula, I have an exclamation point with, because calendula is an herb of the sun. So it holds the sun in it, and it's such a bright and cheery little yellow flower, and so easy to grow. You can sprinkle it in gardens in the winter, and it comes up all winter long in the south. So we get to have this little plant of the sun that goes all through the winter for us, and we can make into remedies both topically and internally. So calendula is a really fun one to grow. I also mentioned reishi here, medicinal mushrooms. What's really wonderful about medicinal mushrooms is that they're immune builders and they're really gentle. So this might be something, if you tend to get sick a lot around cooler seasons, you might want to think about incorporating longer term some medicinal mushrooms in. And then this list over to the left here, I mean, most of this is all aromatic plants. So we've got ginger, which is very aromatic, eucalyptus, mint, onion, garlic, rosemary, juniper. These are all very stimulating, warming plants that help to bring more cheer and joy to this time of year. So so think about incorporating some of these in, either as tea or, and you know, if you're just starting out with herbalism, what I like to tell people is try one at a time. Like, you don't need to make up big formulas and get complicated and feel overwhelmed. You can try making a simple oil with thyme, or a simple cordial with just mint. You know, you can do things very, very simply and still have profound health effects. So I think that's just something I wanted you to keep in mind after hearing all these different remedies, is that you got to go back to the simple things, because some of the most effective and well received herbalists that have done a lot of great healing work have done things with something as simple as just rosemary to heal gangrene, or something really severe like that. So these herbs are complex enough that you can take them one at a time and get to know them. So here's just a list of things that you may want to consider in your search for allies this season. So things like ginger and eucalyptus and mint and garlic and rosemary are also going to open up sinuses and could be used as steams. A lot of these are going to also stimulate the immune system. So this is all things that are going to be helpful for us at this time of year. So I wanted to see if there was any other questions, because I'm going to give it just a few more minutes, and then I have a winter CSH share I mentioned. So it's a CSH. And these CSHs have a menu of choices. And so rather than me do a big line that I put out on the shelves, what me and my students and my apprentices do here is we harvest all sorts of foraged materials from the sanctuary out here at Cedar Creek, where I live. We have an 8.5 acre botanical sanctuary and some gardens. And so all of our remedies are made from as many local items as possible from the gardens and seasonal items. So this winter share is going to have a lot of this in it. So if you wanted to try something and make it yourself, please go ahead and please have fun with it. And if you wanted to try ours, we are selling them through December 15th. So you can go ahead and try them there. And if you want to get a hold of us, you just email the school, and I'll just put I'll put our email in here. But I am hoping that if there's any questions, please add them into the chat, because I would love to see if people have anything they want me to cover besides that before I sign off. And at 7, I'm going to do an orientation to our programs that are coming up for 2017. So if that's something that you're interested in, you're welcome to join us at 7. You can put it in the chat bar. Anything? Everyone feels good? Lots of information? Okay. Wow. Oh wait, this was great information. Okay. I got something. Okay. Well, that being said, if there's no questions at all, then please stay well this holiday season and this cooler season. Go inward, create some rituals, and try out some different herbs that help you to move through the season with grace and stay well and don't get sick, and sleep more. So enjoy yourselves, and I really hope to meet some of you in the real world. You'll recognize me, but I won't recognize you because I can't see you. So have a wonderful evening, and I will be signing off here.